Platonic relationships is simply what made the originals what it was and exactly why it was actually that great. Almost every single brilliant storyline was fundamentally shaped by platonic relationships. I don't think there's a single platonic relationship that was badly written, like none. There are some that I have some issues with, but for the most part, there really isn't any. So let me know in the comments what you think about platonic relationships in the originals, and let's get started.
You know, as much as I've savored the joy of tormenting you throughout the years, I must confess, you all mean everything to me. Your loyalty and your counsel and your love is probably the only reason why I've survived as long as I have, which is how I know. Long after I'm gone, you will all come together, time and time again.
We're bound forever to those with whom we share blood. And while we may not choose our family, that bond is our greatest strength.
Though I may be leaving you tonight, this is not the end of the Mikaelsons. Always and forever.
Always and forever.
Always and forever.
Pretty much the main dynamic for the entire show. In fact, it is the entire show. The originals itself, the show's premise was quite simply the relationship between Klaus and his siblings. I've already mentioned in a previous video that Kami is the instrument that Klaus used in order to become a better person, and the reason why he wanted to become a better person was simply because of his siblings, and also because of Hope, but I'll get into it later on, and exactly how the relationship between Hope and Klaus shaped who he was. With regards to his siblings, the way that Klaus was before the originals, the reason why his siblings even loved him in the first place was simply out of obligation. They have to because he's Klaus, even though Klaus has done everything possible to prove to them why loving him was a massive mistake. And this is simply because although the things that Klaus does is simply out of love and care for his family, he's simply trying his absolute hardest to make sure that they don't die, and the family needs somebody like Klaus for them to actually operate properly. They need a villain, a paranoid psychopath to sense enemies from afar, even before his siblings can actually find out they're enemies, and then immediately having to deal with them even though his siblings might have an issue about what exactly he's about to do to get rid of said enemy. So again, they all understand exactly that they need a Klaus. They all understand that Klaus is required for them to stay alive. They know that deep down, most of Klaus's actions with regards to enemies or people that he believes are enemies are usually done for their safety. However, the thing that they don't agree with is, like I said earlier on, just how far Klaus would go to be his enemies. A lot of the time, it is usually by pushing away his siblings to actually accomplish that. But even after everything that Klaus does, Elijah, Rebekah, and later on Freya still stick by him, simply because of one, they swore a vow, and two, they all have individual reasons as to why they want to still be associated with Klaus. Elijah blames himself for everything that Klaus had to endure from his entire childhood, more specifically at the hands of Michael. Elijah believed that if he would have let Rebekah kill him, Klaus wouldn't have drastically changed from who he was as a human to who he became as an original vampire if he would have allowed Rebekah to actually do what she wanted to do, or do what she was about to do. And not to mention, he also participated in stealing away half of Klaus's identity, something that again made him ostracize himself even more than what he was beforehand. Because before then, he was isolating himself simply because Michael singled him out. So he's already used to being singled out, and when Michael was specifically hunting him, he has to be the only one that's paranoid because he knows deep down that Michael is specifically coming for him. His siblings are only sticking by him simply out of love. If his siblings decided to turn on him, nothing will happen to them. But Elijah will stay back and fight tooth and nail to make sure that doesn't happen, simply because Elijah allowed Klaus to become who he became. With Rebekah, she just wants a loving family. That's kind of it. All Rebekah wants in life is a loving family. She can't have a human family, but she does have an actual family that is still tied to her by blood. No matter what Klaus does, Rebekah still finds her way back to Klaus. No matter how many times she hates Klaus, she still finds a way back to Klaus. Simply because, as messed up as Klaus is, In his messed up way, he does care about Rebekah, and he also does care about Elijah and also the rest of his siblings. And with regards to Freya wouldn't really leave Klaus simply because 1, they're very similar in personality, and 2, because Freya's now got the family that she's been always wanting. The family that was taken away from her because of Esther's decision. And with regards to Cole and Finn was kind of just ostracized from the jump. Like, he was very different from all of them to the point in which they believed that Finn was a threat and Finn needed to be taken out. If not, then Finn would betray them simply because Finn hates his existence and would want to die. With Cole loves his siblings and is seeking adoration from his siblings. However, he can't achieve that simply because Cole is far too rebellious to be able to form any form of relationship that is strong enough in comparison to the relationship that Klaus, Elijah, and Rebekah share. So he tries to call out for attention by being even more violent, which pisses them off even more and making the relationship even worse. Over time, Klaus starts understanding the relationships between him and all of his siblings, and exactly all the flaws within the relationship, which causes his siblings to hate him from time to time. And that growth from being obnoxious and paranoid and doing whatever the hell he wants to the Klaus that he became at the end of season 5 was almost the entirety of Klaus' storyline. And this is simply because he wants a loving family that would help him raise his child.
Mom says when I get bigger, Freya will teach me real spells.
I think you're doing rather well all by yourself.
I can't always control it so well. It scares me sometimes.
You, love, are the daughter of Klaus Mikaelsson. You're going to be the greatest witch the world has ever seen, and nothing will scare you.
I know what you are, you know. Strongest in the world. Strong enough to keep all of the bad things away.
What bad things?
Just bad guys, monsters, people who are mean, selfish, and angry.
Nothing is going to harm my little girl. Nothing will even get close. You're all that matters to me.
The relationship shared between Klaus and Hope is the main storyline of the show, because the originals is basically the last 16 years of Klaus's life that is shaped by his love for one little girl, who is his daughter. And it's never a thing in which it's some crazy dynamic between two characters, because for the majority of the show, Hope was a baby. So really and truly, there wasn't really much dynamics because Hope can't speak. However, the main selling point with this relationship is quite simply how Hope affected Klaus's entire being. As in, like I said earlier on, this is the last 16 years of Klaus's life. And Klaus has spent over 1,000 years being viewed as probably the most evil person in the entire world. However, because of one being, that changed. And he went through this drastic change not because he needs to, but because he wants to. Because for a majority of his immortal life, all of his siblings at some point has hated him. However, the obligation towards him drastically overshadow their feelings towards him. So there's no way he's going to be able to raise a child without that child also growing to hate him. In fact, it got to the point in which he became an insecurity at the early parts of the show, to the point that whenever somebody starts to act like a father to Hope, Klaus gets jealous. Simply because those people tend to have way better emotional maturity than Klaus does. So in his mind, he believes that they're going to be a far better father to Hope than he would. Meaning it will get to a point in which Hope will not need him. But what Klaus came to realize is that every single person in New Orleans, as in the major players in New Orleans, no matter what their feelings is towards Klaus, they might hate Klaus completely, but they always agree on one thing. They will always fight and die for Hope. So the reason why Klaus tends to win, even against ridiculous odds, especially people that came for Hope, is simply because he has a lot of allies. So it's not a situation in which he can just accept collateral damage. Simply because, like I said earlier on, no matter what the main players in New Orleans actually think about the Mikaelsons, they will always agree on they need to protect Hope. Klaus doesn't need to be a factor in this situation. They can try and save Hope even without Klaus. Klaus could be dead and they will still do the exact same thing for Hope. As much as Klaus loves to ostracize himself, this is a situation in which he wants to be in Hope's life. He wants to be a father to Hope. He wants to be seen as the one that loves Hope the most. When people start to doubt him, it hurts him even more. In my opinion, the battle against Dahlia, the main reason why Klaus went ballistic and did all the crazy things that he did, obviously for one, is simply because he wants to save Hope. But the biggest reason as to why he went so overboard with what he did is simply because he was pissed off at the fact that they all came to the conclusion that the best way to save Hope is to get rid of him. That is his biggest fear come true. Now, the fact that he got daggered, not the fact that he got betrayed, he doesn't mind that because that's happened before. I mean, both Elijah and Rebekah tried to kill him at some point. He doesn't mind that, but what he does mind is when people believe that he is not a rightful father for Hope. And the reason why they came to this conclusion isn't because of Hope, it's more so how they viewed Klaus. And because Klaus went overboard and everyone pushed away from him, it made his situation 10 times worse. That is why the flipping characterization between Klaus in season 2 and Klaus in season 3 seems very drastic, although within canon it makes perfect sense. All of this was done simply because of his relationship with Hope. It got to the point in which he stopped micromanaging what Hayley does. He also stopped micromanaging what Elijah does. He's subdued to both of them. He believes he has to simply because he wants to be in Hope's life. The more he pushes away the people that would actually defend Hope, the more likely they will come to that same realization that they did in season 2, any point throughout Hope's life. Now don't get me wrong, the subtext for this relationship is really well written. However, after Hope stopped being a baby is when it started to get stupid. Because there is no way in hell that Klaus will leave a 7-year-old Hope and not speak to her for 7+ years. After everything that Klaus has shown with regards to his relationship with Hope and how he wants to be in Hope's life constantly, there just isn't any way. It makes no sense. Yes, Klaus can't be around Hope. That does not mean that Klaus can't pick up the phone and actually FaceTime her. Because Cole was doing it, what stopped Klaus? That was a terrible storyline. And a really bad taste to an otherwise really well written storyline.
Absolutely not.
Need to blend in. You could start by losing the $1,000 jacket.
Tell me again why we're on a scenic tour of methamphetamine country and not compelling a jet to some far-off, preferably tropical destination.
Look, I'm not the one with an army of pissed-off vampires coming after me. Can I have the keys?
On a scale of 1 to 10, exactly how much am I going to despise this little plan of yours?
I'd say a solid 85.
Oh, good.
Klaus and Hayley, in my opinion, I'll talk more about this when I talk about missed opportunities in the entire show. But in my opinion, if they would have actually gotten together or they would have been written like a romantic couple or a slow burn type romantic couple, they would have been the best written romantic couple in the entire show and the best couple with the most chemistry. Because I am not joking when I say this, as a married couple, these two sell it perfectly. Like they love each other, they hate each other, they fight each other, and they protect each other. There is no point in the entire show in which a storyline between Klaus and Hayley that is boring. There just ain't no way. Simply because, like I said, it is pure chaos. And it's not chaos in which it's just natural toxicity. No, it is just perfectly natural for both of their characters to be that way. Both of them are very similar. Although Hayley is not as violent as Klaus is, Hayley is still ruthless. Just like Freya, because they compare to the rest of the Mikaelsons, people don't understand exactly just how nuts the decision making that Hayley does actually is. Remember, Hayley had all of her friends, Tyler's entire pack, massacred by Klaus just to find her family. And just because the Strix killed Jackson, Hayley went and hunted every single member of the Strix that was involved in the capture of Jackson. Yes, of course, it's for revenge for Jackson, but as Elijah told her, that would have created a new war with the entire Strix, even though none of them really want to, especially seeing as it could easily be avoided. Majority of the time, Hayley is very nice, very approachable, but when Hayley is really pissed off or Hayley believes that he really needs to do something, like Hayley is nuts when it comes to doing something that she believes she has to, even if it means killing a lot of people. Like she was asked by the villain to just kill one witch and she proceeded to march into the headquarters of her coven, in where she's seen as an elder, and killed her in the middle of it, which led to her having to fight off 11 other witches, and she killed all of them, simply because she believes she needs to get back to her family. So yeah, her and Klaus are very similar, although yes, he's nowhere near as violent as Klaus, simply because Klaus's violent, sadistic, and psychotic nature cannot be turned off, but Hayley can, hence why Hayley is seen as an angel compared to Klaus. Hayley's violent tendencies is basically Klaus 24/7. So like I said, they're very similar, not only in terms of exactly who they are, but also how they view raising a child. Just like Hayley said, her parents abandoned her, well, they kind of got murdered. And in Klaus's case, they turned their backs on him, which is basically abandoning him. Because you have an abusive father and then you have a mother who enables the abuse, but worse, is the reason why it's happening in the first place. And she continues to allow it to happen all the way until Klaus was a fully grown adult. So both of them understand why exactly it is necessary for a present parent that not only loves their child, but constantly shows that they love their child above themselves. And also to protect that child from any potential danger. The second part is really important because it is the reason why they tend to clash a lot. Simply because Hayley got to the point in which he believes that Klaus is putting his own needs and his own paranoia which isn't particularly true. In fact, it describes Hayley more than it describes Klaus. But Hayley genuinely believed that simply because other people convinced her to believe that. Which is the reason why I don't particularly like the relationship that Hayley shares with Jackson and Elijah, simply because it contradicts everything about Hayley as a person. To the point that every single time that Hayley is hypocritical has to do with Jackson or Elijah. Which is why I don't like both relationships. Not to mention they're both kind of dry. However, with Klaus, it's very complicated and it's not toxic just because it's toxic. There's reasons why they tend to have issues a lot. And there's also reasons why they love each other. In fact, it's at a point in which, because Hope was too young in season 3, our main points of evidence with regards to the growth in character with regards to Klaus, specifically with his relationship with his family, and the people that he cares about and the people that he also wants to care about him, is showcased through his relationship with Hayley. If you go through Klaus and Hayley's storyline from season 1 to season 3, going from a complicated and messed up relationship, to Hayley being the opinion that Klaus actually adheres to the most, especially when it comes to his morality.
This bite. All this. I know it didn't come from nowhere. This is the last note in a song that I started a century ago. When I brought your dad to town. And for that, I am sorry.
No. You saved my child's life, Marcel. For that, you deserve this. We will take down whoever brought this.
Klaus and Marcel, just like Klaus and Hayley, are very similar. Although with Klaus and Marcel, the similarity is almost ridiculous because they are basically the same person. Like literally down to a T. Like Marcel said, his close relationship with Klaus and the fact that they're very similar, it gets to a point in which he physically can't hate Klaus simply because if he does, then he's going to start hating himself. Because the things that he hates in Klaus is also the things that he hates in himself. Simply because Klaus has shaped everything that he is as a person. Except for one thing, which is the biggest thing that separates Marcel from Klaus, which is morality. Like in season 1, Marcel was shown to be just as ruthless and as violent as Klaus was. Simply because Marcel wanted to take power, but not only that, keep power. And he needs to employ the tactics of Klaus for him to achieve exactly what he wants, which is power and control. Like cursing the werewolves, killing witches, killing werewolves as well. He did that to an insane degree, to the point in which people were contacting dark spirits just to fend off Marcel. Like that's how the Hollow was even involved with Vincent. And that's how Eva Sinclair became what we saw her as. But even with all of these violent tendencies, for one, Marcel never harms children. That's literally his rule. He also have a rule of not harming innocents, and not to mention, he tries his hardest not to hurt the people that are loyal to him. Those rules are the same rules that everyone that's loyal to him have to follow. If they break it, then they die. All things that Klaus will never do. That is the reason why Klaus struggled with loyalty. That is the reason why Marcel was viewed upon more fondly than Klaus was. That is why no matter what Klaus does, no matter how powerful Klaus is, no matter how charismatic he is, he will never have that level of loyalty that Marcel garnered with his followers. However, from season 3 onwards, after Klaus started gaining morality and started to actually care about how people perceive him, he started to garner loyalty from people that otherwise would hate him. To the point in which from season 3 onwards, Klaus and Marcel became pretty much the same people.
Freya, you still have the antidote we used to cure Marcel's bite.
I have it, yes. But I don't know if it'll work against the poison of the rosebush.
You guys aren't listening, okay? Even if we do cure Elijah, we still have a big problem. That's called the Hollow, and it's just gonna keep coming at us until it resurrects. And when that happens, we're talking about an ancient, primal power that's made flesh and blood. It will wipe out this entire city in an afternoon, and ain't a damn thing that you or anybody else here can do about it. Now, my way, we take her out while she's still a spirit. Elijah dies, but at least his death counts for something.
No, I'm not willing to discuss this any further.
What about your little girl? This thing wiped out the entire love in their bloodline. It already got to Hope once, right? Now this is a chance, Klaus. This is probably the one chance that you got. Now you want to blow that opportunity to maybe save your brother? Or do you want to do your job and save your little girl?
Don't use my daughter to justify your absurd plan.
Hey, his absurd plan is the only plan that we've got. So maybe we should do a little less fighting and a little more thinking.
Finally, the New Orleans group. And what I mean by the New Orleans group, I'm also referring to the main characters of the originals, as in the informal alliance of the most powerful beings in New Orleans. Now, like I said earlier on, these people tend to fight each other all the time. They hate each other at times, they love each other at times, but the one thing that constantly keeps them together is protecting Hope and protecting the city. Characters like Vincent and Davina, who would rather watch the Mikaelsons die a slow death and just stare them in the eyes as they die, they would drop anything that they were doing simply to help Hope, even if it means they might die. In fact, like Vincent said in season 4, he doesn't particularly give a crap about any of the Mikaelsons. However, just the fact that the Hollow was going after Hope, he believed it's necessary to align himself with the Mikaelsons in order to take down the Hollow. In fact, he aligned with them for the entirety of season 4. This is the same thing with Davina, this is the same thing with Marcel, this is the same thing with Josh, and this is the same thing with the werewolves, and also this is the same thing with Cammy. I mean, it's to the point in which Cammy has defended Hope with her life, getting herself in a situation with homicidal maniacs who could easily kill her just for Hope. However, because Hope was only about 2 years old, she wouldn't particularly remember who Cammy was and what Cammy did for her, which is quite sad, especially based on how much Cammy did for Hope.